Move that over, get it out of the way there. Okay, all right. So like I just said, everybody should be here for a Supervisors Training course, and the prerequisite for the Supervisors Training course was the basic users. So we don't have to worry about signing in, logging into the system, changing passwords or anything like that, because everybody should be already through that. Okay, so in our Supervisors Training course today, what we're going to look at is the Supervisors Training on the web, the different actions that the supervisor can do. Now, the web access everybody should have. Primarily, that's where we have all the different things for supervisors that we've moved all to the web, so that way the supervisors are able to just jump on anywhere there's web access and make certain daily changes and changes to things that we need to do every day. Okay, keep those schedules up to date so everybody sees an up-to-date schedule at all times. So as you look at a daily schedule, everybody sees that there is just a listing of employees working the daily schedules, what shifts they're on. Sometimes you may have the dates on top, the times on top with the shifts. So you're getting a full view of what's happening for that day. And we know that there's many changes and many adjustments that happen for the day too. So the first thing we're going to talk about is what's going on this daily schedule and what a supervisor has to be cognizant of. So with the supervisors, you can see in here there's a few different things on, say, just this Squad 1 shift that we have here. Next to my name here, you can see there's a job, and there's a number under the job, my name, and some details. Well, what that is we call that schedule details. Now, not sure on what departments that we have on the line are using schedule details, but we're going to go over that right now. That's the first thing we're going to look at, since it's right next to my name here. And what schedule details are, maybe car assignments, maybe also zones, or we call them jobs, or it's just an assignment for the day. And that is maybe my district, zone, or beat, whatever it is. Okay, so there's a couple different things on how to set up these daily activities, these daily items here. When we're looking at a schedule, we have the ability to go in and change things around. You can see that on my name here, I have job 101. Okay. If I go up to the supervisors area here, I have update schedule details. So this is one way of updating schedule details, because in here we're able to pick the employee that we're working with. And I'll go back up to my name here. And what happens is you'll get a calendar of the schedule that I am working, or that the employee you choose is working. So if I needed to make a change on each day, I can come in and make changes to the days. Now we use a drag and drop here, and we could drag and drop any of the listed job assignments that you have in your system. You can see there's many different things in here. Maybe somebody needs to be in communications that day. You can drag and drop and add that to any day. Now also, move that over there. And I'm just going to delete that job out of there. Okay. Also, what you could do is, say you wanted to put them on 2 days. I can actually add that to the schedule, come back in, not only jobs, but also cars. Anything you have set up for daily equipment can be also assigned through this section. So whether you have cars, and you have stealth car, you have car 101, car 305, if you have any weapons, Maybe it's AR or shotguns that you give out. Anything that you want in the system, this is part of the build area where they build in the different equipment that you're handing out, whether it's an AED or anything like that, you can actually put in to the daily details. Now what happens there is any of those daily details show up on the daily schedule. So if I go back to my daily schedule, I'm going to go back to the 7th there because that's where I had it. You'll see on my name, I have now job A for my beat A, the stealth, and I also added a weapon there. So with the daily details, we're able to go in and add those details straight in. It's just something to show, of course, reportable. You're able to report on all the daily details that you have and things like that. But we're able to go in and make those changes and add that information to each individual. Okay. Now, after the daily details, what I want to look at is there's a couple more things that you can do. Every time you click on an employee's name, whether it's in the single view schedule or on the daily schedule, what it does is it will take you and put you on to, go back to today, put you onto a single day. If I just click on somebody's name, you're going to see their name pops up on the top, and we get a list of schedule actions that we can do for those employees. Now, as supervisors, depending on your department and the rules that are set up and the securities are set up, you may be seeing things that you don't have. And the reason is that by security settings, what you don't see, you can't do. What you see, you're able to get into. So it's part of the securities. And some departments work differently than other departments. We know that. And some departments may not have different things like substitutions and reciprocations. But we're going to go through a lot of these items today. And as supervisors, in here we have many departments that are signed up right now and in on our webinar today and our training session. So we'll be hitting some of the things that possibly you may not be doing. Okay. So when I click on somebody's name, it brings me to a single shift schedule. I can return right to the daily schedule by the big orange button, return to daily schedule, and I can come back to that single shift schedule. Okay. Now I have that list of things we can do for the employees. And the first thing we're going to look at is just at the top, it says view entry. We know there's an entry here for overtime requests. And if I view that entry and highlight it, you can see in here it gives me the information that was put in there. This was an overtime request that was approved, entered, and it gives me who made that entry and the time and date stamp. So you're always able to see what's the changes that were on and who made those changes and what time those changes were made. It's where everything is time-stamped in the background. It's especially handy for those who deal with seniority for time off and things like that, to where you can show the employees who put in for it first if somebody was denied, something like that. Okay. Next thing we could do is we can actually add comments next to people's names. So for Robert Titmus here, if I go into add comments, I just click next to his name under the comment box, and I can put a comment in there. Maybe it's CLT at 1500. And all they do is click on save. And what happens, that comment comes up next to his name. Okay. And in there, after I add that comment, I can return back to the daily schedule. And everything carries right over to the daily schedule. It always has that view where you can see everything. So that comment is made. If I go back to a single shift, you can see there's more things in here. We have the ability to move employees around. So say maybe I fell under minimum manpower and I need to move an employee from one shift to another. I can actually come in here, highlight that employee, click on Move the Employee, and change their shift and save. And now, if I return to that daily schedule, you'll see that we moved the employee over to this side here now. Okay, so it's just a really quick way of moving people around, and some departments allow that to subsidize somewhere else in their schedules. And you could actually even pick a different date and move them to a different date and shift also. As we're moving down here, one of the things that we're allowed to do also is change schedule times. Now, we know most of the schedules are set to where I have my day shift or my squad 2, that's this one here, that's 19 to 0700, my overnight shift. But maybe some departments may have early cars or may need to change people around once in a while. If we go to change schedule times, once again, just like adding the comments and putting different information in, all you have to do is click next to their name, and you can see the start time there. And even if I arrow up or down, what it does is put the start time, actually the current time in there. So I can go in here, and instead of 1900, maybe this individual is going to come in at 1800. And they're going to end at 0800 instead of 700. And I could save that. And what it does is just puts next to their name, once again, a start and end time. Okay. Now, not only can we do that on a daily basis just for a quick and easy fix to somebody's schedule. It's really great for the Detective Bureau that does some different times of days that they're in a lot. But as a supervisor, if I go into my supervisor zone here, you can see we have changed schedule times here also. And with that changed schedule time, I can actually make it a date range instead of just that single day. I could also use the drop downs for this month, today, weekly, week to date, things like that. But if it was just this week, I can change it for this week, pick my employees, and I could do multiple employees at the same time. But if I pick my employee, just pick an employee, and OK. Then I could pick a start and end time. Make sure that it's the shift that we're working on. And one of the things to note also is that sometimes that individuals may have multiple shifts, whether it's an on-call shift or something else going on that day. We want to make sure we pick the shift that we're changing. This is especially good when you're having crossing guards in your system. And you may have 2 shifts, an AM and a PM for the crossing guards. You want to make sure you're picking the AM shift or PM shift, whichever one you're changing. And not changing all shifts, because then it's going to change their times even on the PM to the time that you put in here. Okay. Then also, if I just want to change Sundays, I can actually just change Sundays for that date range also. So there's a couple different ways that you can change people's times. Primarily, we know that, hey, this week maybe I need to come in for the whole week and work 9 to 5 instead of my normal 8 to 4. We can go in that administration division, put that in here 9 to 5, and save that. Or if I just need Wednesdays, I can just pick Wednesdays. So it's really flexible on how you can change and what you can change and for how long. Okay. I'm going to slide back to our daily schedule. And on our daily schedule, a couple of things we want to look at is we have the exceptions in here, maybe overtime, time off shows. So we're going to look at time off. And we know as an employee, the employees have the ability to request time off. And that's scheduled time off. And when the employee requests time off, it actually gives an email to their supervisor that says they requested time off. So as an employee, if I requested time off, my email goes to notifications, defaults. I'm a supervisor. I receive that email. And now on the daily schedule, there's a request for time off. And you can see vacation request. And one of the things with the colors is the colors that you choose in the system as you're going along when you're building the system, what colors you want to see for requests and your overtime and approvals. So in here, I'm a supervisor, and I got an email that says time off was requested. I can click on that individual. Once again, it brings me back to my single shift. But over on the left-hand side here in my schedule actions, you can see now I have change time off. If I click on change time off, here is the request that was put in. I can look at that request, and I can approve it, deny it, and save that action. Once again, email goes back to the individual or anybody else that you have assigned on those email defaults, and I can click on Save. Now, before I click on Save, you'll see in here we have some advanced options. Now, we know that next to my name I had an assignment, so I can click on Clear Assignments to take those assignments away. Doctor's note provided if I'm calling out sick or anything like that. So you have a couple different things that you can do there also. When I save that, return to the daily schedule, and you can see now I'm approved vacation day. And it's green, that's the choice that we made when we built the system. Now there's other ways of approving also. When we approve it this way, we're looking at the schedule, we see that there was a date in there, but maybe I wanted to look a little further. In my supervisor zone, we have managed time off. And what managed time off is that we can pull up, for any date range, a full list of who requested off. So if maybe there was multiple requests on that same day, instead of going in and approving one at a time, I can come in here and approve more than one at a time, or deny more than one at a time, however it is. But I'm able to go in and make a quick change here also. And I could actually filter these to see different things. Like maybe I want to see who was denied. Let's see if there's any denials in here. Search. See all the denials that were done for the year right here that it just pulled up quickly. So you can actually filter and see exactly what you need to see. If I only just want to see the request, that's all I have to do. Now I could also sort them by seniority or the entered date. And sometimes, depending on the rules, I'm going to go back to this month here, because if I pull them all up, we'll have a lot of dates there. So if I go back in here, you'll see the denials, the requests, everything that's been put in here. I can have them by entered date or seniority. And you can see before John was first, now we have test cases second as first here. So now it goes by seniority. So there's ways of going through and making those changes. So that's the managed time off. Okay. I go back to my daily schedule. I still have my time off. But say you have an employee that comes in or calls up and says, hey, can you cancel my vacation day? And you're the supervisor. If you click on that employee's entry here, once again, on the left-hand side, you have your change time off, but you also have delete time off. So if I click on delete time off, are you sure you want to remove this time record? I can remove it. Return to the daily schedule. And you can see here now that that vacation day has been removed. And what it does is it actually replenishes the bank for the employee so they don't have that deduction anymore in their time banks. Okay. So we know sometimes that when people take off that it may cause overtime issues also. We have a validate button up here also. And depending on your validation settings that are have been taken care of by your department, and if you're using the validation settings, you can see here when I clicked on validate that this test database that I'm in now turns orange when we fall below our minimum manpower. Well, with that, we're able to do a couple of different things. Whether we need to add overtime, we can go in and we could just add somebody to overtime by clicking on the schedule there. And you see down the bottom here, we have scheduled overtime. Now, as a supervisor, I can come in and either add an employee that's not an overtime basis, so maybe you have part-time employees or maybe class 2s or different statuses that you can add an employee in. I can click on add an employee, pick what employee I would like to add to the shift that day, and just click OK, and that employee goes on to the schedule. Okay. Now I'm still below my minimum manpower, whatever was set up in the rules, so maybe I need to look further. I can schedule overtime, and in here I can enter somebody in for overtime, whoever it is, like one of my officers, and what shift they're working. Of course, we want to make sure we're entering on the right shift all the time. And one of the big things is reason. And with the reason, maybe I have reason in there for manpower, staffing, whatever reason it is that I need to add somebody in, and then their pay type. Now, one of the things to note is that I picked the reason staffing, and comp time is the only pay type that's available for that, that's preset in the build. Maybe it's called in, and overtime is in order. But you may have choices depending on your department rules of whether they want comp time or overtime. And then, of course, start and end times. If it's the shift time, we can put in the shift time. And just to prove that, they'll get an email and click on Save. Now, this employee that I picked is currently working that during the assignment right now, so of course we can't add him to another shift because he's currently working. Okay. So, adding somebody into the as overtime is just by picking the employee, where they're going to be, fill in the appropriate information, and save it. But there's one more way we have to add overtime also to the schedule. Because we have, and a lot of departments will have set up replacement policy, we can actually run the replacement policy from here. And whether you work off of the standard set of rules, just a skill set of who I need, how many hours in a row they're working, they can work, how many I need, what overtime list that I'm going off of, and then whether you're using total overtime worked, seniority, callbacks, however, you can use those options. Or if you're using the advanced rules and your overtime advanced rules, either one, once you're set up, click on Find Now, and this will generate your list to call in for overtime. And this will go in the specific criteria of rules that were pre-set up also. If they deny it, click on Deny. You can put a text comment in if you would like. Just click on Deny, and it'll go to the next person. You call them, they accept. I click on Accept. Once again, I can ask them what type of pay type they want. I can even assign them a job from here. And then even add in any text that I'd like along the way. Click on Assign, and now that put them into our daily schedule. And they're there for overtime. So when the employee requests overtime, say they were held over on a late job, when they request overtime, basically the same actions that we can take for time off, we can for overtime. Whether it's change overtime, and we were marking that from a request to an approval status, or going into the supervisor's area and managing overtime, just like we managed time off, we could pull up those overtime entries that are in the system, and once again, approve, deny, approve a stipulation, whatever actions you need to take, you can take. So they both really run with the same format: change time off, change overtime, manage time off, manage overtime, delete time off, delete overtime. Back to my daily schedule. They're not needed anymore. Delete the overtime, remove that entry. Okay. Now, as we go through here, we talked about viewing the entry, see those timestamps, see who approved something, adding comments next to somebody's name, moving employees around, changing schedule times, even removing an employee. We maybe had a part-time employee in the system that couldn't work anymore. We can just highlight them and remove them from the schedule. Requesting timing off. Somebody calls out sick. It's as easy as just clicking on their name, requesting time off, and putting them out for a sick day. And approving it as a supervisor as the rights you have. Now we have switches, substitutions. For those departments that allow switches, we have a couple different options in here. Whether it is the employee coming to the supervisor and the supervisor going to take the switch actions right here, they can click on switches, reciprocating switches, substitutions, all right here. And if I look at my daily schedule here for a second, I have ULD. Just grab two people here that I may be able to switch. TO. Okay. So say Brian came to me and asked if he can do a switch. I can come into substitute and switch. I have Brian, and he's going to switch with Steve Cito. Okay. Now Steve's working squad 2, Brian's working squad 1. Now a reciprocating switch. A reciprocating switch in the VCS scheduling system is a switch that can affect payroll. If you're reporting hours, reporting weekly or biweekly or anything like that, if I have a reciprocating switch, that switch is going to be reported as Brian and Steve swapped those shifts. So sometimes looking at it in our system, you're able to actually set, and that's part of the administrative work, of times that they can do reciprocating switches. Maybe it's set for the pay period. And if it's outside that, it's going to deny it when they try to save it and say that it can't be done because it's outside those pay periods. So reciprocation actually has to do with payroll. Okay. The next one over, a switch, which we'll talk about in a second, is just that these two are switching, has nothing to do with payroll. They're just switching. It doesn't get recorded in their timesheets. And then we have substitution, which we'll look at in a couple seconds also. Now, if I click on Save here for this reciprocating switch that I put in, you'll see here now that we have Steve for Brian. And if I go back to my daily schedule, we have Brian for Steve. Of course, if there's a change that needs to be made, Steve and Brian come back and say they don't need it. We have undo that shows up now. Are you sure? Yes. And we're back to normal. Okay. Now, say Brian has somebody else that he wants to work for him, and it's a substitution, an open-ended switch. Jose is going to work for him today, and Brian's going to pay him back on another date. It's the same thing. Jose would be in here for the times that Brian wants him to work, and it doesn't even have to be a full shift. It could be a partial shift, but Brian's going to have him work for him, put those entries in, and save, and it will show up on the schedule once again that Jose is working for Brian. And then there's a time switch. Now, we know most of the time that the time switch is probably something that is used by administration because the time switch, they can be giving somebody else time out of their bank. Okay. So the switches and substitutions, that's if somebody comes to you and asks if they could switch, and you as a supervisor put that in. Now we know the employees can go in and request switches, whether it's the reciprocating switch or a substitution. The employees can put in their names and request. The one good thing to know about this also is that if an employee attempts to put in a request for a switch with someone who doesn't have the same skill sets, it will automatically deny that, and it won't let that go through because they're not able to work the same skill sets. Okay. Now, when the employee puts that in, and that was part of the basic users class, the supervisor has the ability to manage the switches also. Now, manage switch requests. See, I have none in here for that date range. If I go back, look at the switch requests that are in here, you can see in here, here's approved, requested switches in our system. If I highlight that one, I have the information on the bottom, who's switching with who, and I can approve or even delete that switch request. Okay, so supervisors are able to go in and approve those switch requests. Okay, so going back, looking at our schedule, we talked about the schedule actions. As we came down, we had our substitute, reciprocate. One of the items in here that we also have that may be used by supervision or administration is called split shifts. Split shift, what that is that you're able to come in and change somebody's times here. Say I was here from 9 to 12, and I left and came back at 1300 and worked to the end of the shift. We're able to add those splits in there. Now, most departments on administrative may use this. Say somebody from administration is leaving and coming back later on tonight for a meeting or something like that. You can show those splits in the system, and you can see in here, it put me in the system here, and return to daily schedule. Okay. Actually, I did Colin Green. Put him in 9 to 12, and he came back 13 to 10. Okay. So that's just another action that we have in the system. Whether you use that or not, it is there. And if you don't use it, you won't see that by security settings. Okay. So we looked at all the items in our sidebar here. We added employees, we scheduled overtime, we ran replacement policy. We're in our supervisor zone here. Now, in the supervisor zone, there's a few things that we can do. As supervisors, if you use open shifts, we have the ability to add open shifts. And this need for overtime is a posting of open shifts. And we're able to come in here and pick the shift we want. Once again, a skill set because we want to get the right personnel there. The date and times, the hours, and a reason for overtime. Now on here it has send notifications for fulfilling the overtime. This will actually send a text message out to everybody on that skill set, and we'll go from there and get notifications on their cell phone. They could choose to go on their cell phone and click on yes, they want the open shift or not. They can go into open shifts under the employee section and sign up. And then once they do, there's an award open shift to where the supervisor can come in. If anybody signed up for that open shift, award that open shift. Now, with awarding that open shift, you can actually run your replacement policy if you had multiple people signed up to award it in that advanced fairness rules, once again, just like when we were in a replacement policy, and it will sort the individuals accordingly. And once I award it, that job is now assigned to John. Okay. We have our change schedule times that we looked at. One of the things in here we have also is lock and unlock shift. Now, depending on, once again, on your department rules, maybe you have some days that are restricted for time off. We have the lock and unlock shift, or you would pick that shift. Maybe it was day shift, and you could lock that shift. Now, if anybody requested time off for that shift, it would automatically be denied because you have the shift locked. Then you could easily unlock it also. Okay. So as we went through, we managed our overtime, we managed our switch requests, and managed our time off. We looked at our replacement policy. We scheduled overtime, and somebody called out sick, we scheduled time off. So we had some schedule details in there also that we changed, whether it was their job assignments or their car assignments. We went in and assigned them to the vehicles. One of the last things we're going to look at next is just in the report section. Now, once again, depending on the department rules and the security settings, there's several reports in here that you may or may not have as actions that you can do. Maybe you have an overtime activity report, employee reports, rosters, scheduling, time and attendance, time off. In here, as an employee here for an employee report, one of the best reports in here is the Statistical Report, which is a lot of people's home page when they sign in. But in here, maybe I need to check another individual. I can come in here, pick that individual. And see their statistical report, what their balances are, and all that information in here. Okay. Overtime activity reports, where you pick the employees. And you could drill it down to what reasons you're looking for overtime. And of course your date range. I'm just going to go this month. And it'll give you all the overtime for that one reason. If I pick two reasons, I can even have my pie chart here show the different reasons here. And depending on, like I said, your department rules is what you're allowed to see. Gives me my different overtime reasons. Rosters. Daily rosters, roll call rosters, strength report. Whether I'm picking my shift, maybe it's nights. Nights has nobody on it. Let's go to come on down here. Squad 1. You can see in here, Squad 1, the date, the job assignments, the officers, badge numbers, any details, there's overtime, and even the comments, just as we had on the main schedule. There's a couple of different rosters in here that you can do. That's the roll call roster. Slightly different pick of the shifts. And just a slightly different way of seeing things in here. Daily roster with notes. Just a slightly different layout. And for those of you who use punching in and punching out, down further, a little bit further, and we have punch reports, punch analysis report. And with that, each employee that you're looking at, you could see what punching in and punching out. And if I have any employees that punch in, punch out, their name, the date, time, location. And one of the cool things is that we have in our system now a new type of kiosk that actually gives you pictures. So if somebody punched in on a new kiosk, it would have a picture designation over here, and you could see who punched in, who punched out. Gary punched in there. So these report areas here for supervisors, where you're able to go in, maybe you want to see the balance of time off, which you can see in the statistical report, or maybe somebody's time off activity, where you want to see how many sick days that they've taken in a report version instead of the statistical report where you're searching through. You have the ability to run the report for one employee or many employees. Maybe it's just sick time that you're looking at. Where's my sick day? And pull up my sick time use. It's a denied day. And of course, on these reports we can print. Okay, so as supervisors, we've gone through a lot here today. We've gone through our daily schedule changes, we've gone through time off, we've gone through overtime, substitutions and switches, general actions with adding comments and moving people around or viewing the entries there, and we've gone through reports. Okay, that concludes our training for supervisors, and I will open it up to some questions if anybody has any questions. Okay. Well, I thank everybody for joining me today. I know we have several more classes going on, and of course you could always sign up for these classes again. They're ongoing. And I'd like to thank everybody for joining me. Everybody should have a great day. Thank you.